Agent Key is selling Sacramento. She's selling Sacramento. Agent Key is selling Sacramento. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
We're just checking to be sure. But then when the show starts,
we're getting ready to go live in a second.
You definitely need your headphones when the show starts.
My countdown clock is a little bit too fast.
I'll go you close.
Testing. There we go. All right. Hey, Chris, just FYI, you're on mute. All right, y'all.
12.
So I got them plugged in, so I'm on headsets, right?
Yes. 3, 2. Let's go.
Hey everyone, it is Wednesday. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key and we are Selling Sacramento. And just to let you know that Selling Sacramento is brought to you every Wednesday at 1 p.m. by Matthews and Company Realty Group, where we love helping you buy and sell real estate. So go to my website at agentkey, AGENTKEE.com, and let's just have the conversation. If you are looking to buy or sell real estate, we are here to help. Today's topic, we're going to tackle something that is very, very polarizing, but it's necessary. And it's the topic of reparations. So the topic of reparations for Blacks in the United States, it's polarizing because it raises complex and sensitive issues related to the legacy of slavery, discrimination, and racial inequality in America. There are differing opinions on whether reparations are necessary, who should receive them, and how they should be distributed. Some people argue that reparations would be a necessary step towards redressing the harms of slavery and addressing ongoing racial injustices, while others believe that they'd be divisive and unfair, and that individuals today should not be held responsible for historical injustices. Additionally, there are debates over what form of reparations, what they should look like, such as direct payments, educational opportunities, or affirmative action programs, and how much financial compensation exactly should be given. The topic of reparations for Blacks in the United States is emotionally charged, and it raises difficult questions about justice, responsibility, reconciliation, and these are all reasons as to why it can be such a polarizing issue. Assembly Bill here in California, Assembly Bill 3121 was signed into law on September 30th, 2020, and it created a group called the Reparations Task Force. This group studies how slavery in the past still affects African Americans today. Even after slavery ended, many laws and practices made it hard for African Americans to succeed in America. The Reparations Task Force in California, their job is to come up with ideas for how to make things better for African Americans here in California, especially those who are descendants of slaves. They'll give a report. Actually, they have given a report, which was due by June 1st, 2022. Let me tell you a little bit about the Reparations Task Force, and then I'm going to introduce our guests today. The task force is made up of 9 people who are appointed by different leaders in the government. The governor chose 5 members, the president pro tem of the Senate chose 2, and the Speaker of the Assembly chose 2. The people who are chosen come from different backgrounds, and they have experience working for racial justice. They also try to represent different parts of California. The task force has meetings, listening sessions, they listen to people talk about their experience, and they ask for proof of the information and of the experiences. The people who are currently on the task force are Senator Stephen Bradford, Dr. Amos C. Brown, who's the vice chair, Dr. Cheryl Grills, Lisa Holder, Assemblymember Reginald Jones Sawyer, Dr. Javon Scott Lewis, Camilla Moore, who is the chair, Councilmember Monica Montgomery Stepp, and Donald K. Tamaki. And on June 1st, 2022, the task force to study reparations gave a report to the California government. The report talks about how slavery and its effects still hurt African Americans today. The report also suggests ways that government could help fix these problems. This is just a preview of the report that you're going to get today, and a full report will come out before July 1st, 2023. And if I've said anything today that is incorrect, I am sure CJEC, my guests today, will politely put me in check. So I want to introduce to you all CJEC, and I bring them on the show probably once or twice, maybe 3 times a year, to provide you with the facts about reparations in California, because that is their sole reason for existence. CJEC stands for the Coalition for a Just and Equitable California. I'd like to introduce to you all today Chris Lodgeson, Kim Mims, and Umoya Glass. Hello, Chris, Kim, and Umoya.
Hello, thank you for having us on the show today.
Peace.
Awesome, awesome. Are you getting sound from them? You were looking a little.
Nope.
Let's try that again. Chris, did you say hello?
Peace, peace.
Okay, so Chris is coming in through the computer.
Right, but not
I'm looking out for our people who are listening online, y'all. Hold on one moment. We're just going to give the speaker right here the microphone to the laptop. How about that? Are we good right here? You can still hear me? All right. Hey now. All right,
Hey.
now say hello.
Peace, peace.
What's good?
Awesome.
What's good?
Awesome.
Hello.
Hey, y'all. So let's get into it. First, let's start by introducing yourselves. Let's start with ladies first, Kim, Umoya, and then Chris.
Hi, I'm Kim Mims, part of CJEC, a Coalition for a Just and Equitable California. Also part of ARC, which is American Redress Coalition of California, and Amend the Mass Media, which is ETM Media Group, and we're a digital advocacy group that kind of tracks all of the task force activity.
Awesome. Thank you for being here this afternoon. Umoya, your turn, sir.
Hey, what's up, Key? How you doing?
All is well.
Cool. My name is Umoya Glass of Amend the Mass Media Group, CJEC and ARC in the building, multimedia producer. And I don't know if you can see this behind me, proud director of Reparations Now. And I believe my man Chris was in it and you contributed to it as well, Key. So thank you for having us on the program.
Thank you both for all of the work that you do with CJEC, and I have to get accustomed to pronouncing it CJEC. CJEC?
Yep. CJEC.
Is that correct? Because that goes along with the T-shirt that I'm still waiting for. Send me my CJEC, my check. Okay. And then last but definitely not least, Mr. Chris Lodgeson. Introduce yourself, sir.
Peace, peace. Hope all is good. Chris Lodgeson, lead organizer of CJEC, CJEC Coalition for a Just and Equitable California. We are California's first, only, so far as we know, organization born just for reparations and reparative justice. We have some amazing folks who work with our group all across the state on reparations, including here in Sacramento, the Bay Area, the Inland Empire, and Southern California as well. Thank you so much, Keith, for always having us up here. We are so happy to be back.
It is my pleasure. This is a very important discussion. I know that when I started the show by saying that it's polarizing, because it is. It's one thing when we're in this setting and we're talking about it, we are all excited. And then I go and I listen to some of my favorite news channels or radio stations and someone brings up reparations, and then all of a sudden the discussion goes south. And I stopped to think about it, and I immediately assess that the person that's speaking, is it because they are not Black, that they're not African American, that they don't understand? It's more, I would say that there are more people out there now who are not aware of the specifics, and may, because they don't have the knowledge, it gives them concern. They're thinking only one way. Sometimes not having the education is what polarizes us, right?
Absolutely.
Not just not having the knowledge. Other times it's our experiences, our life experiences, how we have been raised, the information that we have come to know about another group of people. I think that plays really a huge part. And so why this show is existing today, why I have you all coming on, is not so that we can defensively state the case, but so that we can display the facts. We're going to put the facts out there and let the people decide for themselves, and hopefully they'll see why we're pushing for this. And so I want to talk a little bit first, the information that I stated earlier. Chris, was that in line? Kim, did I miss anything?
You had it pretty much correct. I think there's one thing that I would clarify and underscore, which is that the final report of the task force is coming out on no later than July 1st of this year. And this is the report that will have the plans and the recommendations for what the reparations are. So the first report.
I said
right.
June 1st, but I got to tell you, my paper says July 1st, 2020.
Right on. No worries. And actually, June 1st of 2022, actually, so June 1st of last year was when the first report came out. The first report is a collection of all that the task force learned in its first year of work, which was from June of 2021 to June of 2022. And the task force has until July 1st of this year, 2023, to release its final report. And that final report will have the actual, what are the reparations in it.
Right. And so let's talk about the report that came out. This report explains how the U.S. government has maintained a system of white supremacy since colonial times. Me just saying those words probably stirs up vitriol in some people's spirits, but it's true, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we are saying is true. These aren't things that we are assuming happened or somebody told us happened, and so we're repeating it. These are items that are true. It talks about how the government maintained a system of white supremacy since colonial times through laws and policies that dehumanized and exploited African Americans for slavery. This system of white supremacy, unfortunately, still exists today in many legal, economic, and social and political systems in the US and in California. The government's actions and lack of action has caused physical and psychological harm for generations of African Americans, including racial violence, segregation, discrimination in education, housing, and employment, over policing of Black neighborhoods, and mass incarceration. And when I say those things, what may be sending someone chills is the fact that I'm connecting those things to white supremacy and the US government's involvement of allowing it to happen. These harms have also affected the health of African Americans, causing them to live shorter lives and suffer from more diseases than white Americans. Furthermore, government policies have prevented African Americans from accumulating wealth, leading to a significant wealth gap between white and African Americans. The items that I stated are true. The issue that I think is polarizing is that, again, I'm connecting it to the government and to white supremacy. Chris, any comments about that? Anyone?
Yeah, I'll jump in quick and then definitely want to hear what my colleagues here have to say too. A couple of things. First, thank you for reading from the first report. By the way, if folks want to read that first report, it's available on our website, actually, CJEC-official.org. If you go to the website, stay there for like 3 seconds, it'll pop up. So you can actually read that report yourself and read from what Key is reading from yourself. to actually see what the task force has already said about reparations in California. That's the first thing. The second thing to say is, yeah, it's, I think you're using the right word, which is polarizing, but I want folks to keep in mind too, the effort to end slavery was polarizing. The effort to give us and allow us and for us to take for ourselves our civil rights was polarizing.
That's a great.
And so this is something that I think is naturally, necessarily polarizing, because on one side of this, you have folks who want to repair something that was broken. And on the other side, not always, but in a lot of ways, and sometimes, many times, you have folks who don't want to do that. So yes, it is polarizing in that sense. Also, I want folks to keep in mind too, or know if folks don't already know, that support for reparations among all races is actually on the rise. So there was a story by the Black Wall Street Times that was released probably in the last month or so that showed the difference between support for reparations in the early 2000s among all people of all races, and comparing that with the support for reparations now. And it's like a 10, 20 times increase in the support for reparations now versus when they looked at it way back in the early 2000s. So support for reparations is actually on the rise, and that support is growing among folks who are not Black too.
Now, why do you think that the support for reparations, why do you think it's garnering more support over the ages? Why do you think that is? I can take a guess, but
that's a good question. I actually would like to hear what my colleagues think about this, because I have some thoughts, but I think I want to hear what they think about this too, because I'm really, really interested.
Awesome. Kim, Umoya, why do you think that this effort is garnering more support from people outside of African American ancestry?
Well, like you said, because with the interim report and all the discovery that the task force is doing, it's educating the public. A lot of the pushback that you see, I mean, really early on with the California Reparations Task Force is like, well, California is not a slave state. And once they educate themselves, they'll see that California was definitely complicit in slavery with fugitive slave acts where you could be returned to slavery, and just documented history showing that slavery did exist in California.
Thank you for
and
that.
Still does when you look at the penal system.
Absolutely. Umoya?
Yeah, that's facts. I mean, Chris said it eloquently and Kim said it eloquently as well. I mean, even talking about the first governor here, Peter Burnett, we obviously know, or for those that don't know, he was just a racist. I think Dr. Amos Brown, who sits on the commission for the California Reparations Task Force, he mentioned that through one of the meetings that Peter Burnett was a racist, and I believe in Oregon tried to pass a law to segregate Black people from others in Oregon. So, I mean, that's just a small history. I know from a personal note, speaking about California, and I'm also an artist as well, and I'm working on a song right now, but I've even experienced like overt indirect racism here, where I literally saw a swastika, and it was an ad, and over this Black woman's face, they really wrote the N-word on there. Now, I don't know who wrote that on there, but the mere fact that a lot of people don't think that California hasn't had some complicity in racism is far-fetching. So I think the California Reparations is doing a great job in terms of, giving information, evidence for reparations, and it shouldn't be polarizing. It's definitely an education opportunity for everybody.
It's definitely bringing it to the forefront, which is what we need. And when you bring something to the forefront, the thing that I like about what the Reparations Task Force is also doing, which you've also already alluded to, Umoya, is that they're educating. They have a very succinct process, very strategized. It's not, hey, just cut the check. It's, what is the issue? Let's hear from everyone. Where are the facts, right? Not just cut the check. Where are the facts? What happened? Let's acknowledge that something happened, and not only did it happen, but it has had compounding effects. Not just if you really think about it, it isn't just impacting African Americans. It's had the largest impact on us, because when you put us in the polls next to every other ethnicity, we're at the bottom when it comes to economic development and economic growth. And we're at the top when it comes to all things negative. And so anything that impacts one, anything that impacts the least is going to impact the whole. Take a look at homelessness, right? Chris, it looked like you were trying to say something, but don't forget you're muted.
No, I was agreeing with you over there. And, and first I want to give a shout out to my partner, Kim, who rightly so, and also you, Moy, rightly so, talk about the history of California with slavery. A lot of people have been taught, think still, that there was no slavery in the state of California. There was slavery here in the state of California. If you listen in the Sacramento area, there was slavery right here in the county of Sacramento, where we are sitting, listening, some of us driving right now. So I want to say that again. There was slavery in California. It's something that we haven't been taught or were taught differently about, and something that we hear a lot in response to reparations in California. A lot of folks ask, well, why is California doing this? California was a free state. That's not true. There was slavery in the state of California. And as my partner Kim said, when slavery was outlawed, unconstitutionalized in our state constitution from the 13th Amendment, there was an exception to that put in there. There something in there that says slavery is not allowed, and involuntary servitude is not allowed, except as punishment for a crime. And actually right now, a lot of us are actually celebrating right now the passage in the state assembly. Just yesterday here in the Capitol, the State Assembly Public Safety Committee of ACA 8, Assembly Constitutional Amendment 8, which would remove the involuntary servitude exception from California's state constitution. Right now, California still has that exception to involuntary servitude in our own state constitution. And this is a legacy, a living,
amazing that it's still there. It is amazing. It's incredible that something like that still exists in our Constitution, in the Constitution of the state of California. Involuntary servitude. It's there, folks, and it's people like CJEC and in particular Jamila. Go ahead and give a shout out to
Lamb. Let's shout out Jamila Lamb, Samuel Brown, the whole Anti-Violence and Safety and Accountability Project, the whole End Slavery in California Act Coalition, All of Us or None, Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, GLIDE. I mean, the whole, there's probably 30, 40, 50 organizations who are right now working together to take that out of our state constitution.
That's amazing. And so there you go. So when we talk about polarizing, it's things like that depolarize this. And so it's the reason why we're here today. I'm using the word polarize so many times because sometimes we just have to hit the monster on the head. We have to call it out. And that's what's happening. And so it's shows like this that provide information and facts that tell everyone. And California usually leads on these things anyway, right? California is the state, they're like, hold my beer. What? You ain't gonna do it? Watch me do it. And so, and to your point, when it came time to get rid of slavery, it was polarizing. But there were people that said, hold my beer and watch us do this. We are going to eliminate slavery. It is not right. So now here we are at reparations. So let's talk about, there were several categories. I want to name off all of the categories because this group, the Reparations Task Force, also came up with recommendations. So they came up with recommendations under several categories: enslavement, racial terror, political disenfranchisement, housing segregation, which we're going to talk about today, separate and unequal education, racism in environment and infrastructure, pathologizing Black families, stolen labor and hindered opportunity, control over creative, cultural, and intellectual life, an unjust legal system, mental and physical harm and neglect, the wealth gap, and they are developing the California African American Freedmen Affairs Agency is another recommendation. So I wanted to list all of those because this is just how many rocks they turned over. They wanted to make sure that this wasn't something that was just a flash in the pan. If we're going to do this, let's do it right. Let's talk about this. Let's hear from as many people as possible. Let's see the evidence. Under housing, here are the items that they identified as recommendation under housing. Let's see if we can hash some of these open today. Chris, Kim, and Yamoya, are y'all ready?
Ready.
Actually, before we do that, we're going to take a break.
Oh, okay.
We have been going and going and going, and we have to take a break or else they may not let me come back, y'all. So you have been listening to 97.5 FM. We're going to take a 3-minute break, but we will be right back to discuss this specific category of housing segregation under the Reparation Task Force's recommendations. You've been listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key, and we will be right back.
Hello, Sacramento. It's Vince and
Key coming to you from the Matsui Waterfront Park, continuing the countdown with number 7 of the top 10 things to do in downtown Sacramento.
Selling slack, selling slack, selling slack, selling slack, selling slack, selling Sacramento, buying the block back. Selling slack, selling slack.
Hanging out on the Sacramento River is a favorite pastime among Sacramentans.
Ride the bike.
Ride the bike.
Ride the bike. And as you guys remember from the last video, we tried to do the jump bikes, but they didn't work.
You guys know the bikes that they have now out, the little red bikes, jump bikes. They weren't charged.
They weren't taking a charge.
We got to figure that out.
Yes, exactly.
So take your chance, but the bike would have been cool had it worked for us.
But guess what? They updated the jump bikes. We were able to do jump bikes.
Yes, the bike update is tight. Getting the bikes can be a little bit of a task. I must tell you, you first must download the Uber Bike app.
You have to have 2 separate credit cards if you want to rent two different bikes.
1 credit card per bike.
Correct.
Yeah.
We had to find out the hard way, like 5 minutes in.
10 minutes in of my time. My bike was right, his wasn't. So we get the bikes. I immediately fall. I was trying to record and drive. I hadn't ridden a bike in a long time. So we hit the trail.
She didn't really fall. She sort of fell slowly and jumped off.
So we hopped on the bikes in this episode. We're cruising down the bike trail, and we're going to show you guys all of the different things that you can do hanging out on the Sacramento River. The Robert T. Matsui Waterfront Park will act as a destination attraction along the existing Sacramento River Parkway bicycle trail that connects Old Sacramento to Discovery Park. Currently completed.
So we're riding along the Sacramento River on the bike trail. We're seeing all different types of people and activities. You see people on skis, jet skis, on boats. We see guys out fishing.
Lots of beautiful scenery where you could just stop and take pictures and take selfies.
And this one here wanted to take selfies all day. I was melting. Chocolate melts.
Well, yeah, I'm chocolate too, but it was nice. It was really
Very
nice.
nice ride though. Very nice ride.
The people all seemed nice as we ran into them. They looked like they were regulars on the trail because they were.
5, 2, let's go.
Hey everyone, we're back. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key, and we are selling Sacramento. And today we are talking about reparations. It's a reparations update. That's what it is. We've got CJEC here, the Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, Ms. Kim Mims, Mr. Yamoya Glass, and Mr. Chris I keep saying Lodgson and it's Lodgson, and he is just so kind. He never says anything.
It's all good. It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you all for being here. So I want to just dive right into the housing segregation recommendations that the task force came up with. There are several of them. I'm going to read them off, and then let's just get into a discussion about whatever jumps out at you. There's a lot here to digest, and we don't have time to digest it all, but I just want to make sure that our listeners and our viewers know what the Reparations Task Force came up with specifically under housing segregation. So the first is identify and eliminate anti-Black housing discrimination policy practices. I had to stop right there because somebody listening right now has said at some point, discrimination, that's not legal. There is no more racism in housing. The fair housing laws eliminated all of that. You can't discriminate anymore. So a statement like that, I don't want to say it's ignorant, but I want to ask you if you've ever said that, if you are still saying that, it just because you create a law, and we've said this before, doesn't mean it doesn't still occur. Laws don't prevent people's actions. Enforcing the laws can minimize people's actions, but laws don't prevent people from still doing the same thing that the law was created to do. And so racism still exists in housing. Compensate individuals forcibly removed from their homes due to state action, including but not limited to park construction, highway construction, and urban renewal. Maybe we should pause. If something pops up that y'all want to just jump in there and talk about, let's do that, because there's a lot here.
You know, I was going to jump in real quick, and definitely Kim and Yamor, feel free to jump in too. So just, I want to make a sort of an overview statement of the pieces that you're reading now. And just so folks know, as we were sort of saying earlier too, the final plan for reparations will be out no later than July 1st of this year. And that will have the final recommendations in it. So what you're hearing now are some of the early recommendations that the task force was considering last year in its first report. And generally speaking, the task force, most likely, from what we can tell right now from the draft of the final report, which by the way is also out right now, the draft, or what will be, or what was the last version of the draft report, is out right now also online. It's actually at the California Reparations Task Force's website. And you can find that website on our website too, CJEC-official.org. But what we expect to be in the final plans will be a few different things. First, compensation, direct compensation, particularly for a few different areas, but specifically one of those areas will be for harm suffered for our people in the housing and the real estate industry. Secondly, folks can probably expect that there will be, as you mentioned, I think earlier, you mentioned something called the California African American Freedmen Affairs Agency. So that's a new agency that the task force will most likely be recommending in their final report. That agency will probably have in it a division or office or a piece of it or a department specifically focused on housing. So there will be a specific place in our government specifically for those who are eligible for reparations, which, by the way, are descendants of persons who were enslaved or free and living in this country before the year 1900. There will be a specific office department specifically focused on housing and real estate for this group of people. And then there's some other things too. Specifically, I think one last thing to mention is that in addition to all of those who are eligible receiving direct compensation, generally, all of the descendants and all those who are eligible, who are the descendants in this case, will also be able to file direct claims. Many of those, I think, will be about housing, and real estate related harms too. So again, just sort of giving a general overview here that folks should expect that in the final report, the final plans will feature the specific final recommendations, even though a lot of what we're reading and going to be hearing now from Key are actually some things that the task force has been considering.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I posted the website where you can go straight to oag.ca.gov/AB 3121/reports. They make it really simple. If you even Google California Reparations Task Force AB 3121 and reports, it will pop up as either the first or second link for you to click on. They make it very easy to find. Thank you, Chris, for that overview. Moya or Kim, did you want to add to that?
I mean, I'll let you finish with it, but you mentioned some things forcibly removed from your home. You mentioned urban development, zoning, things of that nature. I have really been vocal about them focusing more on the subprime housing crisis because a lot of people were forcibly removed from their home during that time too. And, you know, it appears that they've been listening to what we're saying. That's why it's so important that the public get involved and provide testimony, provide written comments to the task force because they are indeed listening. Matter of fact, a quick update from the last time that the task force was here in Sacramento for their late March meeting. They had to determine on the housing discrimination portion whether they were just going to be looking at the harms timeline from 1933 to 1977, or if they were going to consider the harms timeline from 1850 to now. So, you know, my public testimony was definitely that it should be for current times to capture that subprime modification harms that we just experienced not very long ago. So they will be considering the harms for up until current day, which is actually very good news.
That is very good news because, as you stated, there is some damage that occurred with the real estate fallout that some individuals are just now recovering from, and there are other individuals who still have not recovered from that situation. And so it's good that, like you said, public comment and public testimony are actually persuasive and very valuable at this point with the committee. So as I continue reading the list of other items that they've recommended, and Chris just informed me that there is an updated report now. And so again, you can go to that report. So what I'm reading here may not be the most recent. Is that what we're saying, Chris? Possibly?
It's definitely good to know because those were the things that the task force was considering, you know, as they were going into the part of the work that they're in now. And there is still a chance that some of these will still be in there. Now, everything in there are good things to do anyway. Right?
Well, it's good. Right. I like that you say it's good to know because, again, when we see the final piece, many people who are not a part of this discussion or who are not involved in hearing this piece, the ground floor stuff, are going to see the final piece and not know the work that went behind it. And so I think it's important that we still share, here's what they were considering. Here's what their original considerations are that got them to that final piece that you will eventually hear on July 1st, correct?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I think that's a great point. It's very important. This is something that we've been seeing throughout this process. It's very important to be able to follow the steps of the task force step by step because they're building on their prior work. All right. So the final plan will make more sense if you understand what they were recommending in the first part of the work that they did with the release of the first report.
Right, what went into it. Thank you again for that. So let's continue this list. Some of the other items that they are recommending are prevent current banking and mortgage-related discrimination, included but not limited to discriminatory actions as a result of artificial intelligence and automated data analytics. Repeal Article 34 of the California Constitution. Article 34 of the California Constitution prohibits low-income subsidized housing to be built without a consensus vote of the citizens in the area in which it's being built, of which we know every single time it's going to get voted down.
right?
Repeal or counteract. And we need and here it goes to again. What's good for the least is good for all. What is it that we need the most right now? No colors even needed. Housing, affordable housing, all throughout the state. So this is not only going to be good compensation and reparations for African Americans, but if we can just focus on getting affordable housing for the least of us, then that means we've created affordable housing opportunities for all of us. Another item, establish a state subsidized mortgage system that guarantees low interest rates for qualified California Black mortgage applicants. I can see some people being bothered by that immediately, but the key word there is state subsidized, because the mortgage rate is what it is. But that means that the state of California will have to throw down some rate buy downs that, and this isn't anything new. We do rate buy downs right now for our clients getting into home ownership. You have to buy down the rate when you want to get to a payment that you can afford, when you want to get to a payment that's more feasible for you, whether it's a good market or a bad market, whether the market is inside or out. Rate buy downs exist for people to do that all the time. And so that's
Keith, can I ask one question about this too? Because I was actually interested in this part too, especially with your experience in the real estate industry, right? Because from what I understand, right, we're expecting rates to be continuing to rise, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I think that the consensus in the economic industry, as far as the economic forecast is concerned, they don't know. Nobody knows. There is literally nothing in the economic playbook of past history as to where we are going to try to assess what is getting ready to happen. There are so many variables at play. Next year is an election year. There are wars being fought overseas. Everybody's on edge about China. North Korea could explode at any time. There's so many variables happening. And all of those things have some bearing on the economic needle, on interest rates, with our own government, with our own economics. And so not only are we looking at things globally, but nationally, and then right here locally, right here in the state of California. So the short answer is no one knows. The long answer is you got to just take this thing day by day. What can you do now? What's happening to everyone now? What needs to be addressed right now? And then you assess that based on what you know to be true and pray that it plays out well down the line.
Yeah, when you said local, I thought you were going to be more granular to Sacramento. It seems like every other week there's a different fluctuation in the market, and you just don't know where it's going.
Absolutely. We laugh because there was a 30-day buyer's market in the month of January. 30 days, a buyer's market for only 30 days. We are prime into spring buying season, and inventory is still low. We are back at multiple offer situations where buyers are paying more to get the house. The amount of programs available, even though they're out there, first-time home buyer programs, the rates on some of these programs are high, and it's leading to mortgage payments that are $500 to $1,000 more a month than they were this time last year. And for some people, that's just not bearable. That's just financially not bearable. And so they sit on the sidelines and they wait. And to that point, I just want to throw in a nice little commercial and say, go to joinclub100.com, because we are having our learning lab this Saturday where we are talking about the WISH program. It silently came on the scene at the beginning of the year, and then that 20% down payment program that lasted for 2 weeks came up, and everyone just got excited, and then everyone fizzled the scene thinking that, okay, my hopes for home ownership are gone. But we want to invite you to come to the lab on this Saturday, 9 to 5 p.m. When you get through the lab, when you complete the lab, you will receive a HUD certification upon completion of the class and speaking with our HUD certified counselor and completing that phone call with him. But the other thing is that you'll gain information about the WISH program, which is a $29,000 grant program. You have to bring in a certain amount, 7,000 some odd dollars max. And for every amount that you bring in up to that, they will match that and up to $29,000. So join us this Saturday so that you can come learn about that program if you're a buyer and you're still wanting to get into home ownership right now. I wanted to throw that in because these are the tools that we'll probably see get expanded to become a part of a reparations package. They're going to look at things like this to try to model behind what does that look like? How do we make that happen?
For sure. And just,
yeah.
No, just I want to add one thing to that too, because I think that's important. And I think you just mentioned, the part about the down payment and the assistance, and folks also, coming to the table with some funds to help support their home purchase and their home ownership dreams. And that, I think folks who go through that process are very, very, very much aware that is a part of what actually takes place. Part of what I think folks should expect as a part of the final plan for reparations is that, as I mentioned, folks are going to get direct compensation. So folks are actually going to be getting direct compensation as part of the plan, right? And I think it's important for folks to know too that when the plan comes out, that's not the end of the work, right? The plan then has to become law, right? So there'll be some more work that we have to do after the plan comes out. But part of the plan for sure will include direct compensation, particularly for harms, as I mentioned, related to housing. And as Kim talked about, the time period that they're going to be looking to compensate folks for harms related to housing really go from way back in the day, the 1800s until almost now, basically. So until 2020, I think. So that will be helping folks as they are potentially purchasing homes, right? If you're getting direct compensation as a part of a reparations plan, that can potentially supercharge your home ownership process and your home ownership dreams, right? Yeah.
As it should. So we talked about the mortgage system, to establish a state subsidized mortgage system for the low rates. Another item that they identified that they recommended was to identify previous and eliminate current policies and practices that overwhelmingly contribute to the vast overrepresentation of African Americans among the unhoused population. And again, it goes back to whatever's good for us, whatever's good for the least is going to be good for all. The unhoused population is a big issue right now, not just in Sacramento, in the entire state of dealing with in talking about the unhoused in California. I don't think there's a place we can go in any part of California except some higher end neighborhoods where you don't see unhoused people, and they're not just Black and brown.
Key, can I say one thing about this? I think this is so important. So important. I think, and I think rightly so, we focus a lot on folks who are working to build, homes or to purchase homes. But we have a lot of folks who are renting, and we have a lot of folks who are unhoused. And actually, there's probably more of us, in sort of that sort of, side of it than folks who are owning homes. And this is a very, very important part of, I think, the work and what the Task Force for Reparations in California will be able to address, with particularly the direct compensation, right? And also with, again, a particular agency specifically focused on housing for us as a people, as a community of descendants of persons who were enslaved in this country. But it is a very important part of, I think, this work. I think something that we want to focus on as much, if not more, because we have a lot of our folks, I think the last numbers that I saw were 40% of the unhoused were African Americans, and 50% of the unhoused families were African Americans, right? So if you compare that to some 6% of our state population, I mean, that is, crazy.
That's massive.
Yeah.
That's massive. And in comparison to other cultures. And these are the things that I think people need to be aware of in comparison to the percentage of the population that we are. which is a small part of the population. And the amount of us, the magnitude. So when you say something like 50%, there are not 50% of some other ethnicity that is also falling in line when it comes to unhoused. Those numbers are much lower. And so you got to ask yourself, why is that? And you cannot go to a default taught narrative that you just need to pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Ask, how is it that I'm even having to pick myself up by my bootstraps? How did I get to the point, right? So that is the exploration that this committee has done. Let me continue in this list here. We want to get through this. I just want to make sure we get through the list so that you all can say you've heard. Here are the items that they have discussed, and this is how they got to the road, the end of the road, where you'll see that report on July 1st. Identify and eliminate any policies with blatant anti-Black residency requirements or preferences, invalidate and deem unlawful any contract with anti-Black racial covenants. Provide and secure public housing for vulnerable populations, including those persons who are formerly incarcerated in the foster care system and unhoused individuals. Provide development incentives for businesses that provide healthy foods, specifically grocery stores in predominantly Black neighborhoods, to address increasingly prevalent food swamps. All right, let's discuss.
Yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. You know, we were just sort of talking about our formerly and currently incarcerated family just before the break, and I think it's important to highlight and uplift our brothers and sisters who are formerly incarcerated and currently incarcerated. And I think you and maybe me, and I think a lot of us do know, but maybe some don't know, that when you are coming out of the prison criminal injustice system, there are a lot of barriers, roadblocks, things in your way for you to get housing.
Right. There are rights that are taken away from you.
Absolutely right. 100%. And I haven't seen any specific data on this, but I would guess that a lot of folks who are unhoused have either a criminal record, are formerly incarcerated, or in many cases, I think we've seen this here in Sacramento and elsewhere too, are subject to criminalization while they're out there. Right. Like, I mean, a lot of folks get criminal records while they're out there unhoused and are treated, of course, as criminals while they're out there too. So this is a very, very important part of the work, and I think a very, very important part of what the task force is looking at. Just in January, the chair of the task force, Camilla Moore, along with one of the vice presidents of the LA City Reparations Commission, and folks like Samuel and Nathaniel Brown, who runs the Anti-Violence Safety and Accountability Project, visited one of the men's prisons, actually, I believe it was in Lancaster, to talk to the brothers and sisters in there. Should we talk to the brothers in there about their experience? And I'm sure housing came up in there too, in that conversation.
And I thank you for that, Chris. I want to share, Umoya, I saw the link that you sent to me regarding the Bay Area housing discrimination complaint, and that race was a factor. And I really like that FHA is now addressing that. There are a lot of, and to your point earlier about when I used the word polarizing, there are a lot of people who are getting on board with righting these wrongs. I personally know some appraisers here locally, Ryan Lundquist, who made a comment earlier and said, hey to everybody. He is a white male appraiser, and he's very well known, and he is totally on board with rectifying the wrongs with regard to these bad appraisals, these bad appraisers, these bad players. And that is the courage that people have to come forward with and say, hey, you know what? It's time to fix this. This has gone on long enough. That is a blatant foul. That is, in preparation for tonight. That was flagrant. It was flagrant, and we need to make it right. So thank you, Umoja, for sharing that. And Kim shared the California Reparations Task Force interim report marathon read available on YouTube.
Yes. ETM Media, we read through that whole 500-page report. I know it's available in its written form online, but if you just want to, listen to it while you're doing other things, it is a lengthy report. We did do that as a community service.
And I see that you have it listed here. Chapter 0 is the executive summary. Chapter 1, they've got it listed. Let me see if I can pull it up here for those who are, let's see if I can do a share screen.
And I can drop it in the chat too. I'll drop it in the chat. So it should
drop
come
the
up
link
on
in the
YouTube.
chat. I'm going to pull this up on the screen. I don't know if it will take you off, but I just want those people watching to be able to see it. Let's see. So you guys can see what it looks like here. So you've got the executive summary, introduction, California Reparations Task Force, Part 1, enslavement, Part 2, enslavement, Part 3, racial terror, and Chapter 3, Part 1, Chapter 3, Part 2, racial terror. They literally read the entire document, and they've now made it available for you to listen to on YouTube. This is the work that they do.
Tremendous work.
This is the work that they do. Thank you all. We didn't even get an opportunity to take our second break, but it is what it is.
All gas, no brakes.
All gas, no brakes. That's a really good one. That's a good way of putting it. Thank you all. Is there any last things that you want our listeners and viewers to know about CJEC? What are you up to? What is the task force up to? What is it that we need to be looking out for? Are there any upcoming listening sessions?
Oh, thank you for asking. I know Kim was getting ready to jump. So you can. So
go ahead, it's all you.
Right, all right. I'll real quick. So Saturday, May 6th, California Reparations Task Force, 15th or 16th public hearing. We don't have a specific location yet. We know it's going to be in the Bay Area, but you'll also be able to attend virtually as well. So that's Saturday, May 6th. It'll be most likely from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So you'll have time to check in when you can during and throughout the day, Saturday, May 6th. Also, this weekend, our team will be in San Diego for a California Reparations listening session in San Diego with Chair of the California Reparations Task Force, Camilla Moore, and member of the California Reparations Task Force, Monica Montgomery Stepp, San Diego City Councilwoman, that is Monica Montgomery Stepp. Here in Sacramento, Saturday, May 20th. We haven't put out the specific details on this yet, but I'm going to preview it here for you now. Here in Sacramento, there will be a California Reparations Q&A and info session Saturday, May 20th at Drip Espresso, Midtown, Sacramento, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. I'm previewing this too. Saturday, June 10th, we'll be here in Sacramento as well for a California Reparations Q&A in partnership with the Sacramento NAACP at the Fruit Ridge Community Collaborative. Stay tuned. Follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at CJEC Official for all the updates on all events. And visit the website, cjec-official.org. There's an events page. You have all the events listed there. There's a ton of events going on. I just listed like only 3 out of like maybe 10.
And that was really good that those came off the top of his head. I didn't see him refer to any documents. So that's just how deeply entrenched they are in this. Kim got just excited, like she was just going to rattle all of that off as well. And so a little birdie told me that you also are going to be speaking with the Sacramento Realtors Association, the Black Realtors.
Oh yeah. I'm so much looking forward to it. Shout out to Zarita. Excuse me. Yeah, shout out to Zarita. Sacramento Realtors has graciously invited me to talk to their illustrious and amazingest organization. I think that's May 11th, if I'm not mistaken.
I didn't get the date, but she told me.
So looking forward to that. And shout out to the whole Sacramento Realtors organization, who has been really following and tracking this and really showing a strong interest in how the organization can support reparations in California.
That is awesome. That is our time. You all are amazing. Thank you. Looking forward to you coming back. Ladies and gentlemen, that was CJEC, Chris Lodson. not Lodson. I like
There you go.
Lodson, Kim Mims, and Umoya Glass. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Chris, Kim, and Umoya for showing up and keeping us updated. And remember, if you are doing what you were created to do, I will see you at the top. All right, you guys.
Yeah, great job.
Great job.
Great
Yeah,
job,
a
great
lot
show.
of information to cover. Definitely a lot of information to cover.
It was. I want to say hey to everybody that stayed tuned in for that entire time. That was a lot of deep information. And I'm hoping that somebody watching learned something new that they can maybe have second thoughts about or take back to their friends. Make sure you go to the CJEC website and log on there and sign up to stay informed so that they can receive newsletters and information. Right, Chris?
Yes, absolutely. We have a free monthly California Reparations newsletter that we put out. So if you go to the website, there's a news and reports page. Just add your email there. You can also sign up for text message updates, and you can sign up to volunteer too. If you want to actually get involved and help share information about California reparations, there's a way for you to do that too on the website. And again, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at CJEC Official today.
Thank you. All right, my loves. Y'all have a great one. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Great job.